The sun had just begun to rise over Australia's south coast, turning the horizon gold. Waves rolled in smooth and quiet, breaking in gentle rhythm against the shore. It was one of those mornings that felt too calm to ever go wrong. 16-year-old Ethan Miller zipped up his wetsuit, tossed his board under one arm, and ran toward the surf with that wide grin only a kid who grew up by the ocean can have. He had surfed this beach since he was 10. He knew every current, every break, every hidden reef. His friends joked that the sea was his second home. And on that morning, the sea seemed to welcome him back. The water was warm. The air was still. He paddled out, slicing through the surface as the sound of seagulls echoed overhead. For a few moments, it was pure freedom, the kind of quiet only the ocean gives, where you can hear your breath, your heartbeat, and nothing else. But sometimes that quiet means something else. Sometimes the ocean holds its breath before it strikes. It started with a ripple, barely noticeable, just a soft shift in the water behind him. Then another, the kind that makes you look over your shoulder, not sure why your chest suddenly feels tight. Ethan squinted at the horizon. Nothing, just sunlight dancing on the waves. A few seagulls circled lower than usual, their cries sharper, restless. He glanced at his friends, who were paddling further out, laughing, chasing the next swell. He thought of joining them, but something stopped him. The water beneath his board felt heavier. Then a flash, something dark, just below the surface. A shadow moving against the current. Large, smooth, fast. His brain whispered dolphin, but his gut said otherwise. He shook it off, forced a smile, and focused on the next wave forming behind him. It was almost perfect. He turned, ready to ride. But the water around him had gone eerily still. No waves, no wind, just silence. And in that silence, something massive stirred. Without warning, the ocean exploded. A wall of water surged up behind him, the impact so violent it threw him off his board. He didn't even see it coming. Underwater chaos, a blur of bubbles, power, motion. Something slammed into his side, hard enough to knock the air out of his lungs. He opened his eyes and saw it. The pale white underside, the enormous shape moving with terrifying grace. A great white shark. He kicked, instinct taking over. But before he could reach the surface, he felt pressure, crushing, burning around his leg. Teeth. The shark had him. The sound wasn't a scream, not at first. It was a roar underwater. The muffled, raw sound of life fighting not to end. He thrashed, punched, hit anything he could reach. Bubbles filled his vision, blood clouding the water. He could hear nothing but his heart pounding in his ears. And then suddenly release. The pressure was gone. The shark had let go. He burst to the surface, gasping, his board nowhere in sight. "Help! Help!" he screamed, voice cracking. His friends, just 30 yards away, froze. Then one of them shouted, "Shark!" Panic tore across the waves. Ethan tried to paddle, but his right leg barely moved. He looked down, the water around him tinted red. He fought to stay calm, but the pain was everywhere. Blinding, electric. "Hold on, mate. We're coming." A friend on a jet ski gunned the engine, racing toward him. The shark's fin cut through the surface again, a dark knife slicing the water behind Ethan. It was circling. Every instinct screamed move, but his body refused. He tried to paddle, his arms trembling. Each second felt like it might be his last. The jet ski reached him, skidding to a stop just as the fin disappeared. Hands grabbed him, pulled him up, half onto the seat, half dangling. "Go! Go!" someone yelled. The engine roared. The water surged. Ethan clung to the ski with what little strength he had left. Behind them, the waves rippled again, the shark following, close. By the time they reached the shallows, the rescuers were already running. Lifeguards splashed through waist-deep water, dragging him to the sand. His board drifted in behind them, cracked clean through. They laid him on the beach. His skin was pale, his breathing shallow, his leg torn open. But he was conscious. "Stay with us, buddy. Stay with us," a rescuer said, pressing down hard on his wound. Ethan's eyes fluttered. "Am I gonna be okay?" he whispered. His voice was small, fragile. One of the lifeguards nodded, even though he wasn't sure. Someone yelled for a tourniquet, another for a stretcher. Sirens echoed from the road above. People gathered, silent and terrified. A helicopter thundered overhead. Paramedics sprinted down the sand, their voices calm but fast, the kind of calm that only exists in chaos. Within minutes, they had him stabilized for line in oxygen mask on. As they lifted him toward the helicopter, one rescuer looked out over the waves. The water was still again. Beautiful, deceptive, like nothing had happened. But everyone there knew it had, and no one would ever look at that beach the same way again. Ethan arrived at Royal Perth Hospital in critical condition. The surgeons moved fast. Blood transfusions. Emergency reconstruction. Hours passed. Outside, his parents waited. Faces pale, hands shaking, holding on to each other like they might fall apart if they let go. News spread fast across town. A teenager attacked by a great white just a few hundred meters offshore. By midnight, a doctor finally emerged from surgery, exhaustion written on his face. "He made it," he said quietly, "but it's going to be a long road." Days later, the ocean looked the same. Waves rolled in, gulls cried, and surfers returned, slowly, nervously. But for Ethan, everything had changed. He woke in a hospital bed, his leg bandaged, the hum of machines around him. The first thing he saw was his mother's face. Relief and tears all at once. The second was sunlight through the window, the same golden hue that had shimmered on the water that morning. He couldn't feel his leg. He didn't know if he ever would again. But he was alive. When the story reached national news, Australia reacted with both horror and awe. A teenage boy had survived what most never do. Surfers from all over the coast sent messages. "Stay strong, mate. Can't wait to see you back in the water." Ethan smiled at that one, because deep down he knew he would return, someday. Not because he wasn't afraid, but because fear wasn't going to take the ocean away from him. In the weeks that followed, marine biologists and wildlife officers combed the coastline. No shark was captured. No definitive sighting. Just an endless stretch of blue that seemed, somehow, more alive than ever. Experts said it was likely a great white, drawn closer to shore by rising temperatures and shifting prey patterns. But they also warned, this wasn't revenge. It wasn't malice. It was instinct. Nature doing what nature has always done. One marine officer summed it up best. "Every time we step into the ocean, we're visitors. And sometimes, the ocean reminds us of that." The local town rallied behind Ethan. Surfers held fundraisers. Schools sent cards. A GoFundMe campaign raised thousands for his recovery. Strangers showed up at the hospital with letters, drawings, and prayers. His story spread across Australia, not as tragedy, but as survival. As proof of resilience. They fear the ocean, and then they return to it. For weeks, the beach remained eerily quiet. Parents kept children away from the water. But eventually, surfers returned, cautiously, eyes scanning the horizon. Because that's what people do. They fear the ocean, and then they return to reflection. Months later, Ethan walked again. Slowly, carefully. The scars on his leg would never fade, but they became symbols, not of fear, but of survival. He gave his first interview standing on the same beach where it happened. The waves behind him rolled softly, the sound calm, familiar. When asked if he'd ever surf again, he smiled. "Yeah," he said quietly. "The sea took a piece of me, but it gave me a second chance too." The interviewer paused, letting the words hang in the air, the sound of the ocean filling the silence. Today, the beach is back to normal. Families, laughter, boards cutting through water. But for those who were there that day, every ripple still carries a whisper. Because when the ocean takes, it doesn't always take life. Sometimes it takes certainty. It reminds us that beauty and danger can live in the same breath. The narrator's voice softens as the final images play. The sunrise over calm water. The same golden light. The same endless sea. He was just a boy chasing waves, and the ocean reminded him it's never truly ours. We borrow it for moments, and sometimes it borrows us. The music fades, soft waves roll. A long pause, then, like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe for more real stories of survival, courage, and the fragile line between life and death.